for the Mermaid Cake tutorial, I use this pattern that you can find on my blog when you subscribe. And I wanted to show you how you would actually put the finished product onto the cake. And I also want to show you how I made the waves for the mermaid cake. You're going to have your cake. It's going to be, this is a cake dummy, but it's going to be covered in fondant. You're going to take the pattern, not the piece that you've made, but the pattern, and you're just going to trace it along the fondant. Because you don't want to put ruffles, again, in front, but the fondant, when you place the piece onto the cake, is going to adhere to your design. And what I've done is I've used the easiest rose cutter ever. I have some extra fondant left over, so I wanted to quickly show you how I made the fondant waves, or the ruffles, whatever you want to call them. You're going to want to make sure that the fondant is pretty stiff. So for this, I went ahead and put Tylose powder into fondant and modeling chocolate. I just find that modeling chocolate gives you can mix the two together and make the colors that you want, and then you can add the white fondant to either lighten it if needed. But you're going to want it pretty stiff. It's not soft. All right, going to put some cornstarch down. Get out here in the center so you can see me. The sun is shining brightly today, so I had to wait a few minutes because my studio is full of light. And you're going to roll it out. And it's going to be not real thin, but not real thick. And you can also use a pasta roller if you wanted to make sure that the ruffles are evenly thick. You can find a pasta roller at Walmart or a discount store for about, I don't know, $15. Or you can get even fancier and get one for your KitchenAid. This is leftover fondant, so if you see any imperfections in it, I'm going to ditch it anyway. All right. Now the easy rose cutter that I have here, the reason why I'm using it is just because it's got the scallops. See how it just kind of flows? If you have another cutter that does the same thing, go for it. All right, I'm going to take this, put some more cornstarch down because you don't want it sticking. And place it into the center. I'm going to take it, make sure that it's not sticking. And take it apart. Now we're going to cut it down the center. You can use a knife or X-Acto blade, whatever you want to use. I just use these little ceramic knives because they're small and I love them in my workshop. So now you have two pieces. You're going to place it onto the foam. And one thing that you're going to make sure when you begin these ruffles is you want to keep this line really straight. I'm going to start with a ball tool. And this is a Wilton ball tool. And I'm just going to thin it out a bit. And you know, if you have a ball tool, anything round. But if you're going to be baking cakes and decorating, I do recommend getting a variety of these because you just can always use them. All right, so we've got this a little bit thin. And now I'm going to use my favorite tool, which is a sail stick. The sail stick is, I can hold it like a pencil. That's why I like it. And that's how you want to do it. If you hold your pencil like this, or however you hold it, just hold it how you feel comfortable. Or again, you can keep using the ball tool. And you're just going to go in one direction and stretch it. You don't want to go past this area here. You just want to stretch it. Thin it out. Now you could use just gum paste, but to me gum paste doesn't taste good on a cake. I like to use half Malin chocolate, half fondant, because it just makes it taste a little bit better, and then I add Tylo's powder to it. So you want to make sure that you're not going past this level, and you're just going to stretch it, going one direction. Just continually. You want to put pressure on it, but you don't want to put it too hard. You just want to kind of stretch it and get those ends real thin. You don't want to, again, you don't want to thin this out because this is what's going to adhere to your other fondant, okay? Had to take a break there because I could see my camera kind of going, focusing in and focusing out, which kind of will make you a little dizzy. Hopefully it stopped that. Just want to thin it out around the edges too, around the little things, the little circles or the little beginning of the scallop. Especially around the end here, you want to thin it out. And it's real important to make them pretty well even across here because they will be shown on the cake. You just want to try to get them as even as possible. Then take a little ball tool or something that you can thin it out a little bit more around the edge, and you're going to press pretty hard without breaking it, just to kind of give it a little bit thinner on the end to make it look more like a wave or a ruffle. All right. To find out how many ruffles you're going to need, just take a measuring tape and measure how large your cake is, or how large your cake is going to be, and just add as many of these ruffles that you need. Now I recommend doing more of these ruffles than what you need, and that's so that if you have a spot that's empty after you finish the cake, well, you can always just kind of fill it in. So what I always do when I'm making ruffles is after I do the crumb coat on my buttercream, that's when I began to make my ruffles. As you can see, it's very stiff because it's been sitting overnight, but that's okay. It's a lot easier to do with something stiff than it is something floppy. Now I'm going to show you how to put these onto a cake. Keep in mind, this is a dummy, and you really need to have your whole cake covered with fondant. So I'm going to try to get them to stick. I don't know if it will work, but we'll give it a little try. And I'm going to start with, just putting it on top here. Let's see if it'll go. Now, another thing too is you can actually add white. Once these get a little bit firmer, you can actually go ahead and paint your white to make white caps on your waves. And what I did with mine, I just added a little bit of silver coloring. Didn't go that far. Here, let me stand up. Let's get this in view. You're going to place it, because you're going to have fondant right here, so you won't see the white. And you're just going to press it onto your cake. Now what I use too, and I wanted to show you this, is if you're an artist, these are water pens, and they're absolutely fabulous for doing sugar work. I just love them. You don't get too much water, and they're specifically for working with your cakes. So we have the ruffles here. Now, if I were to, let's see if it's going to stay on. Yay! Do this, well then you can fold it back, and you can get it how big you wanted the ruffles to be. It just may not stick on the styrofoam here. Needs another layer. Some more lard on there. And you're just going to, see, this one has been overnight and it's a lot stiffer. If you were to add a little bit of water to it with your water pen, it's going to actually do a little curl for you, because you've got the sugar a little bit wet, and it just kind of melts a little bit. See? You see that? Now this one is the one that I just made. If I were to try to put that on there, it's gonna have a lot of issues. So you want to check, and what I usually do is I will take a batch that I made, and I usually go ahead and do my ruffles or design a little bit ahead of time, and I watch and see how long it takes it to dry. Just a sample, just one. And that way you know exactly when you need to put and how long you need to let them dry before you put them on the cake. So I'm gonna put this back down again so I can see it. You're going to take the ruffles and you're just going to line them up all the way around. Then when you do the second ruffle, let's put a little bit more lard and see if it stays. You're going to start at an angle, and when you do this, you may have to take, when you end, you may have to take a little bit off, or one of the little waves off. Let's see if I can get this on here, styrofoam. All right. And you don't want to put the ruffles too close together. If you're doing a ruffle cake, you really want them close together, but when you're doing the waves, you really want them kind of a little further out to make them look more like waves instead of ruffles. This is the one that's been in there overnight, and you can tell, start manipulating with your hot hands too, that you're going to be able to make these little ruffles. And you want to make sure when you start that you're alternating the design. If your ruffles are too thick, remember to just add a little bit of water with a brush or a water pan. These are really inexpensive. You can get them at Hobby Lobby in a 3-pack. And if you do watercolors or you work with sugar, it's a really great thing to have. All right, so we have this here. I hope you can see it. And if you, like I said, just add a little bit of water to it, it'll work out as waves. Okay. And that's how you do the waves for the mermaid cake tutorial. You can put them as close as you want, but I like to have them a little bit spaced out. As you can see, there's a little bit of space right there. I just like to have them spaced out a bit. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and check out my mermaid cake time-lapse video and go to my blog and get this little template for your cake. Thanks so much for watching.